Yeah. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Today is Father's Day, and in honor of Father's Day, I have my very special guest, Vincent Mellinger. Yay!
It's the only father you got.
It's the only father I got. He's going to be talking with us today about how the real estate market has changed from his perspective, because you've only bought residential properties, right? You never bought any like I'm going to put the little microphone here.
No commercial.
Yeah, you do no commercial, no rentals,
no
or
rentals.
Just houses.
Just houses.
You guys, halfway through, of course, we always go into your questions, and we'll continue to answer your questions. If you have a question for my dad, you can ask any questions of my dad.
Well, let's keep.
We're all real estate related.
Oh, okay.
I got a PG audience, Dad. Don't worry about it. But first, I want to talk to my dad about my last video. We started talking.
Oh, this is going to get nasty.
It is not. No. Okay, so my last video came out. Dad called me up and he said, "Hey, I watched your video and I agreed with most of it up until you said," what did I say that you didn't like?
I don't want the government involved in anything.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear him. Let me know if you can. He doesn't want the government involved in anything. And I guess my clarity in that video wasn't there, because no matter what the situation is, when it comes to housing, you have to have government involved. There's just no way around it. To buy land, it requires government. In order to get anything done, to build a house requires government permitting, no matter what. And a lot of red tape can be eliminated if certain things are done within government.
Like eliminate government.
Well, good luck with that. Like societies fall because of lack of government. So that's what I meant by that. So he was like, yeah, I get it. So we were talking back and forth. I said, we will bring that up because other people in the comment section of that video last week said the same thing, said the same exact thing. So they were on the same page as you.
Well, I don't know. Reagan pointed out kind of clearly, he says, worst thing you want to hear is I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And that's scary. So with that as a background, that's been my philosophy on life in this country, period. I'm more of a libertarian if you were to put people in boxes than anything else. So you'll all know where I'm coming from.
I don't like labels. I don't think anybody falls in exactly in one category. I don't either,
because there are many issues that I'm just as liberal as liberal. So.
Yeah, right. There's like nothing really fits one. Like very rarely does.
It's like my clothes.
Yeah. It's like my income. So, yeah. Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but no matter what, when it comes to housing, whether it's affordable or not, you still have to have government.
Oh, because of the way government's currently structured, absolutely. And it takes that local government, if you want to expand into affordable housing, maybe in a modular way, you have to get the approval of the local government entities to make that happen. And there are builders who'd be more than happy to build as long as they can make money.
Yeah.
And
incentive.
Yeah.
You got to have incentive.
The fact is that a builder would much rather build a $1 million house because he's going to make more money and with less effort.
Right.
If he's
higher quality buyers.
If he had $200,000 houses, he'd have to build 5 of them. And then that means you got 5 crews, you got yada, yada, yada.
But you have smaller lots, right? So
yes, you do.
Right. I mean, I get it all. I mean, the whole thing is that you make more money the bigger the house is. Yeah. I know that. That's why they put in Texas, postage stamps lots, and every bit of it's taken up by the house.
Well,
pretty much.
And that's awful.
It's awful.
It's just as bad here,
Yeah. We're lucky to have a yard, though. I think we have a nice yard. I'm good with it. You got a good yard.
I got a long yard.
Yeah,
Not too wide, but
they bought this house brand new, and so Dad was like, "Oh, where do we put the fence?" So they staked out the property line, and he's like, "It goes all the way back, because it's like a pie shape that goes all the way back." He's like, "I moved, so I didn't have to do all this. Now there's too much."
sure, they incorporated 25% of the rest of the parish.
Oh, Betty Boo has a question. I saw it right on the screen. How much was your very first house? So since we're going to dial it back.
Oh, good Lord.
You said 14, right? 14,000?
Well, yeah, but this is back in 1966 or 67. I didn't have any money, but I had 2 kids. And we needed a place to live. The apartment was getting just cramped and just not comfortable. So having been a veteran, I qualified for a VA loan with no money down.
Congratulations. That's a great loan. They still have those.
Yeah, that was it. Hey, we were cashing in empty bottles for the cash that we could get. And so we didn't have too many nickels to rub together, but we had enough income to cover the payment of the mortgage payment.
What was the mortgage payment? Do you remember?
Gosh, I don't. The amount of the mortgage was $13,800. I remember that, and it was a pretty nice house for $14,000. It was 3 levels, living room, kitchen, and a dining area on the first floor. Second floor, we had 3 bedrooms, only 1 bathroom, and but a full basement where kids could play and what have you. Problem with the bathroom was, and the interior of the house, everything in the house was dark pink and very dark green.
I like pink.
It's enough to make a monkey barf, I'll tell you. It was horrendous. But it was $13,800. That was our mortgage.
Somebody asked what war were you a veteran of?
I wasn't in any war. I was in during the Korean era, but I was not in any combat. I was in Korea, but it was following all of the combat activities.
Yeah.
All I did was drink and shoot birds.
You got lucky, dude.
I did.
That's a good way to serve. Cheers. You get to drink and get some benefits. Rock on. I'm jelly. Not that I ever served, so I can't be that jealous. All right. Living in Atlanta, Georgia. I used to live in Atlanta.
Yes, we did.
Yep. Kristina, mods, and everyone. Happy Sunday and Father's Day to everyone. I changed my YouTube handle from Clark the Realtor to living in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to give you a little tip there, Clark. It wouldn't have mattered if you changed it to I'm the best realtor in YouTube. The channel name does not have anything to do with people watching your videos. Your content is what gets your videos found on YouTube.
So you must be a quality dude. That's all I know.
Yeah. So just because you change your name to living in Atlanta, Georgia, I know there's a popular belief that that's going to give you SEO Google juice. That's not true. Just FYI. I know I've heard that in several groups. I'm like, that's not true. And if you don't believe me, I'm actually my name and my story about YouTube is in a book. The YouTube formula by Daryl Eves. So I don't actually know everything Daryl Eves does, and I just happen to siphon off his brain. Good
brain to siphon.
Oh, if someone says I say realtor wrong, it's realtor. I say realtor wrong, but you know what? In the grand scheme of things, the public doesn't care as long as I get their house sold.
House salesperson.
House salesperson. That's why a lot of times I say real estate agent, because I get so much garbage in the chat for saying realtor instead of realtor. I just think realtor sounds weird. It doesn't sound right. It's like slacks. If anybody wants to ever get on my nerves, say the word slacks instead of pants. Slacks. What was your second house, Dad? Where did you live?
Okay.
Where was the first house?
First house was in Carnegie, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the house a very short period of time, and I was transferred to Indianapolis. And getting to Indianapolis, I was told, don't buy a house because you're not going to be here very long. So we moved 3 times in Indianapolis, from one apartment to a larger apartment to a larger apartment. And these kids kept coming along. We had 2, then we had 3.
Didn't no one tell you how that happens?
It's confusing to me.
Oh, okay.
And from there, we moved to Boston area and couldn't afford a house there. I'd had to have 4 jobs. So we rented a townhouse there, and then transferred to outside of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Westchester, right?
Place called Westchester, Pennsylvania, where this young lady was born.
I found a picture. If you guys are friends with me on Facebook, I have a picture of me, and I have blonde hair and a mullet. So it's a baby in a mullet. That's me.
Yeah. And that picture, I actually have hair, which I do not.
Yeah. Well, that was chemically induced.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
In Westchester, we bought our next house, which was probably one of my favorite houses. It was a tri-level, and the price on that in the, let's see, that would have been in the early 70s, late 60s, was $48,000.
So your house was 48. So you went from 14,000 to 48,000. Right. Wow.
But I also made 4 job changes and increased income. So,
gotcha.
And I was able to get some help on the down payment from my grandmother, and
that's nice.
It was very nice. And so we bought that house and stayed in that for 5 years.
No, we moved. I was a baby still when we moved to Massachusetts. I was probably 2.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
But we were there before you were born, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you were there before.
But we were there for about 5 years, and we moved back to the Boston area, and we ended up buying a house in Plymouth, Massachusetts, a mere 2-hour commute from Boston.
But it was an awesome place to grow up.
Oh, it was a lovely place to live. Oh my gosh, it was wonderful.
It was wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome.
But the 4 hours a day commuting was a killer. Did that for 11 years. So, but when I bought the house in Massachusetts, I was stretching my budget to $58,000. So
you bought that one for $58,000.
$58,000.
You know how much that house is worth now, right?
I'm not sure exactly. No.
$790,000.
I probably should have stayed there.
Yeah, I looked it up, and then you had moved to Atlanta, and that one is over $780,000.
Yeah, the one we bought in Atlanta, we paid $100,000. No, we moved to Texas.
You moved to Texas, right?
Texas first, and we paid $145,000.
And we got a swimming pool.
And I put another $30,000 in for the pool.
But that was an awesome pool.
And a couple years there, and then to Atlanta. And that was in about 150, 155, somewhere around there. And what did you say it's worth now?
$767,000.
Good grief. Well, I wasn't smart enough to stay there either. And then I retired. I retired at 55 and moved to Florida.
I moved with them.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You had just finished high school.
Yeah, that's where I met Eddie Teddy. I had a few boyfriends in between there, but
we won't discuss
we won't discuss that.
You could have been married to a professional golfer.
I could have.
Oh, good Lord. That would have been a mess.
Oh, nobody liked him. He's a freaking weirdo.
Including you.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Houses in Plymouth for a new build are $750,000. Yeah, Jerry Reed just said that.
Unbelievable.
750,000. Oh, who said I'm bored? I'm sorry you find us boring. We're having a fun conversation about my dad. That's what.
Sorry about that. I'll shut up.
No, nah. If you have any questions about real estate, I'll be happy to help them. I just wanted to include my dad because he's my favorite dad ever.
I don't mean to blabber.
Oh no, I love it.
It's a hereditary thing. We tend to
talk. I have diarrhea of the mouth. Yeah, I do enjoy talking. I attribute all of my exceptional personality skills to my dad.
I think I'm going to throw out.
I attribute all my cooking skills to my mom.
I cooked the cornbread.
Yeah. Well, now you've learned since you're retired in the last 10 years, really, you got into cooking. Yeah. Question for Dad. When you bought your first home, how was the home? How much was the home and how much was his salary and was it unaffordable for a lot of people back then?
That's a good question, really, because a lot of the affordability is, in fact, something to be defined, and it's not. Mm-hmm. What's affordable for somebody may not be affordable for others.
The definition of affordability is
can I afford it?
No. They said the calculator is 30% of your income.
That's realtors talking.
No. I didn't make that up.
My house, I didn't think I could afford it at $13,800. The realtor said I could. So my grandmother said she'd help me if I needed it. So it became affordable. But my salary at that time was about between $9,000 and $10,000 because I knew that a year. If I was ever to make $10,000, I would have been in the chips because I needed to make $10,000 in order to buy the $17,000 house that was up at the top of the hill.
Oh, you wanted to be on top of the hill?
No, I wanted to be in that house.
Oh,
it was nicer than what I had. So, and so does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, but were people having a hard time being able to afford a home back then, or was it more? Was it easier to obtain a house if you made the money? Because there's lots of people right now that have the money. They could buy a house. There just is no supply of homes available.
See, I'm not sure I have the background to respond. I was living in the city at that time, and the housing in the city was relatively inexpensive. The houses were hundreds of years old and falling apart. But I would say that house was affordable for most people who had a good job. And a good job, I would say, it wouldn't have to be in a management position in a corporation. A lot of my neighbors were mill workers and
so like the average guy could get a house.
Absolutely. And so everybody in our neighborhood, no one had any money.
They were just average workers.
Yeah. Just
So I didn't tell you this is a little thing. For them to get eye contact with you, you got to look in this little thing right here. I know you're looking over here. But if you look here, then they can.
Gotcha.
So they can see your eyes. So they know that you're talking to them.
I'm lying through my teeth. How's that?
No. You're not lying. You're not lying. All right. Question, Anna, it says, is it wise to keep resale value when purchasing a home? Are you meaning like not dipping into your equity in your house? That would depend on your financial situation, right? So if you're trying to keep on a house currently and you're like, well, I want to hold on to it because I feel like the market is going to continue to go up, and that's the only reason you're holding on to that piece of property, and it's not enabling you to move on with your life. I think that's kind of silly. Like you're like, well, I'm just going to hold on to this, and I'm going to stay in this town that I can't stand because I can make some more money. And then what happens if the market fails at that point, and then you lost another $10,000. Then you get in a panic mode. That happens. People will panic. They're like, I thought I was going to ride this wave as long as I could. And then they have panic selling. So, and then you don't want to get to that point, because then when negotiation comes along, you end up taking a lot less than you thought you would. You end up getting steamrolled. You don't want that either. Oh, look, somebody says we're an awesome couple.
Well, absolutely.
We are an awesome couple. I got a lot of good looks. I got a good 50-50 from both my mom and dad. So I got the eyeballs, the blue eyeballs from my mama.
From my mama.
From my mama.
Anything that looks good on her is her mother.
I got the thin, fine hair from my mom, but the curliness from you.
Curly?
Yeah, it's curly. I just always wear it straight.
I had one curl, one hair that curled.
All right. It says, question for Dad. What were the mortgage rates during the mortgage rates and duration plans back then? All right. Did they have 30-year fixed rate mortgages back then?
That's taxing the memory.
I do remember your interest rate in Massachusetts. Do you remember?
No.
I remember because it was 12.75.
Good Lord.
12.75. The only reason I remember that is when we were moving to Texas, I remember my dad talking to the neighbor and how excited he was to be moving to Texas and having that mortgage rate any longer, because the mortgage rates had come down.
Our first house, the rate was, if I recall correctly, it was under 4. It was in the 3s, I believe. And
this kid right here, this kid always shows up. You see this name right here, this kid? That's their screen name. And every time they're on there, I'm like, oh, look, it's this kid. This kid's here. They said they love you joining us today. It's special. It is a very special. Normally when we do the show, I usually pull out some of the real estate headlines for the week and we discuss what's going on in the real estate market. This week, I just, forget the headlines. I think this is 10 times more interesting to have my dad, because I don't.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I think it's awesome to have my dad on here. So
thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Yay. All right. We got a $2 super chat here, Dad. Look at that. It says, please read my question. So Eddie will pull up your question. All right. Eddie, if you can find his question, that would be great. Ooh, we got a $20 super chat from Betty Boo.
Whoa.
You both are awesome. Thanks for sharing your dad's views on housing.
I'm going to send Betty a check.
I'll have you know, though, YouTube takes about 40% of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to send them a check.
No. Eddie will find your question, Synth, and he'll put it up on the screen as soon as he locates it. If you could, to make it easier, go ahead and type your question one more time, like copy and paste it from where you had asked it earlier, and then Eddie would be easier for him to find. Thank you so much for the super chats for my dad today. That's so nice. That's so nice. My favorite house. Do you know which one it was?
I would say the one in Plymouth.
No.
No.
No. My favorite house that we lived in was in Texas. And I love the location and the neighborhood that we grew up in Massachusetts, because the kids and it was just so much fun. We lived out near a lake. So my dad had a boat. We can go water skiing all summer long. That was fun. But the house and the way that floor plan was in Texas was awesome. And it's still a beautiful home. I drove past it and looked at it. They had taken off the bay window and stuff, but the pool and everything was still there. And that was a beautiful.
Liked that. Your mother really liked that.
It had a really good kitchen. It had a really good, the layout was perfect. And then all the kids' bedrooms were upstairs, and we had our own little den area that, where we could watch television and didn't have to be around my mom and dad. We were at that age that we didn't really want to hang out with mom and dad. We were getting into our teenage years, and that wasn't fun anymore. So that was a great house. I love that house.
The acreage was not something. We had 6 inches between our house on the right and left, and we had just enough room in the backyard to fill up the entire yard with a pool. There was no space that wasn't occupied.
Betty Boo, she asked again, what how much was your first house? You said 13.8. Yeah, 13.8, and that was in
Carnegie, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, yeah, Carnegie, Pennsylvania. All right. Olive covered fridge and stove is in Massachusetts. We did.
Oh,
so we had, I mean, like, talk about monochromatic, right? Our house in Massachusetts, it had shag green carpet. Even the trim, all the woodwork was stained in this green. Then the wallpapers were this like avocado green. And of course the kitchen had the linoleum that was green. And then all the cabinetry was green. And the refrigerator and the stove and the sink. Everything was like green, green, green. But this is like, it was one of those bi-levels. So as soon as you hit the landing, you know, it would, the stairway one way was green going down. But then once you hit the landing, then it was orange. It was this awful burnt orange. But I tell you what, though, that carpet, you couldn't see anything. Like us kids, 4 of us trampling through there, you couldn't see anything. Like, and you know, to fluff up the carpet, of course every kid's done this, to fluff up the carpet, we used to take a rake and rake it, and then my mom would be like, did you vacuum? We were like, oh yeah, totally vacuumed the house. We had just taken the rake and raked the shag carpet. I knew you knew, but it was fun.
That was ugly.
Oh, it was horrible. But that downstairs was awesome. It had all that woodwork. We had these like wood beams in the ceiling.
Oh,
it was beautiful. You know, the wood paneling was, it could have gone. You know, it wasn't necessarily sexy, but you know, other than that, I loved it. I loved it. My most memorable memory of that place is when we had the blizzard and all the snow had covered up the windows, and we had to go out the back to get water. We were like collecting snow out of the backyard to be able to go to the bathroom. And I remember by accident I flushed the toilets, and we were on a well, and I had gotten in trouble. It's just a little kid, you know, but everybody was a little tense. It was cold.
Flush you down.
Yeah. All right. So, inflation. Have you ever looked up your first house? How much? Do you remember the address of it all, or anything like that? I'll look it up. Let's see if Dad's memory can pull that up.
He's picking on old people. You know, we have these moments, you know, the things just disappear.
Well, you're lucky you can say that at your age.
It was Lindsay Road.
Lindsay Road in
Carnegie, Pennsylvania.
Lindsay
Road.
Car. Oh, look at that. Lindsay Road in Carnegie, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Oh, look. I'll just go pull up the first one.
Okay.
The first one I found on Carnegie Road was 5. All right, hold on. I'm looking at the price. It's $321,200. That's not too bad.
That's the $17,000 house.
Yeah, like it's a little small house.
Yeah. That's what they're asking now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that furniture looks like that French provincial that we used to have in my room as a kid. Yep. Marvo has a question. It says, we need to make 10 grand a month and then to be middle class. Now to salute you and your father. Happy Father's Day. Great show, ma'am. You're always bringing the real updates. I am an investor in buying properties. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. This is a little special today because my dad's here and it's Father's Day, and I actually forgot to cancel it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make Dad a part of it. So, yeah. So, in 1960, a loaf of bread cost 23 cents. It cost the federal minimum wage at that time was $1. In 1970, a loaf of bread cost 25 cents, and minimum wage was $1.60. In 1980, a loaf of bread cost 50 cents, and the minimum wage was $3.10. In 1990, a loaf of bread cost 75 cents, and it's $3.80 was the minimum wage at that time. How much is a loaf of bread right now?
$3 and something.
Yeah. It's oh, look. Yeah. In 2010, it was $3.
Yeah. It's 340 something, I thought.
Yeah. It's over 3.
I saw a statistic the other day, speaking of,
Uh-huh.
it's not exactly the inflation, but the way things change over time.
Uh-huh.
It was in the year 2020, a 28-year-old.
In the year 2525. Sorry. Intrusive thoughts. It got a hold of me. Sorry.
In 2020, a 28-year-old was harping that he wasn't quite ready for a relationship.
Okay.
Okay. In 1820, a 28-year-old had 14 kids. In the year 1220, it was a good life. 28 years. That's all you lived.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things change.
Yeah, we have indoor plumbing and air conditioning. Thank God. Not 18 kids at 28. You know, like the good old days.
Well, even in the early years of the 19th century, my grandmother had 16 pregnancies and 14 children that lived. My dad was one of 14.
No, somebody wants to know if you're the same size as me because they want you to hold the coffee cup.
No.
They want you to know. My dad is taller than me.
I'm just tall. I'm not very big.
Yeah,
I used to be bigger.
Yeah, well, he shrunk some.
I shrunk some.
Yeah, since
chemo will do that.
Yeah, he had the cancer and it took some weight off of him. You know,
Yeah,
the cancer
it's
does
a hell
that
of a
to
way
you.
to diet. I'll tell you.
Yeah, like if you need a weight loss plan, I do not suggest the chemo, but it does work. Byron has a question. In the time you were raising children, what was the neighborhood makeup in those days? What was how did neighborhoods look?
Yeah.
Were they, it's because you lived in some cities. So were they, pretty mixed and unique in cultures?
In the first house, it was, like you said, laborers and average working people.
So it was like a soup, like cultural soup. Everybody, a little bit of everybody.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of integration.
Mm-hmm. Because that was like the time period, right?
And depends on where in the city you lived.
Right.
I went to an inner city high school, and it was more integrated than integrated.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the let's see. Go to
From what I remember, though, like the houses that I remember living in, we had a soup in Boston. Like there was a little bit of cultural everything, a little bit of everything going on there.
The difference in Massachusetts was our neighborhood was made up primarily of professional people,
right?
Mostly,
right?
People who owned stores, doctors,
successful entrepreneurial degrees,
salespeople,
people with degrees, but it was
very good realtors.
Is it realtor?
Realtor.
We're still saying it wrong.
Well, in Pittsburgh, we talk funny anyhow.
Yeah.
But you don't sell a house. Yeah. You sell a house. It's a house.
And then if you do you ever say Wooder? Did you ever say
that's
Wooder?
In Delaware.
Okay. Freaking Delaware. Anytime anybody mentions Delaware, I always go freaking Delaware. It's like my thing.
The other mixes, the neighborhoods were pretty well mixed.
Yeah.
Here in Louisiana, we have
everything.
It's quite racially integrated. It's
culturally. Yeah. Even in Atlanta, we had that. Like we had all sorts of different cultures all around us. Yeah. Well, we got a little bit of everything. Yeah. But did you ever live in a neighborhood that was like they had like covenants that would say things like in your youth, in your early years? Were there ever any segregated neighborhoods that you knew of?
Not where I lived.
Because you lived
within the city.
Yeah, within the city.
Yeah, it just wasn't something that you even considered. But this was also in the north in the 60s.
Yeah.
I would say that probably wouldn't be true in the south in the early 60s.
Right.
Yeah.
Because some of those covenants, they're still, because they're filed in the tax, like in here, Louisiana, right? Some of the older neighborhoods, all the covenants stay with the neighborhood. So every time that you're signing for a house, the old covenants are there. And some of the stuff that they say in those, you're like, oh my goodness. And you're like, yeah, this is all, none of this pertains, but you still have to sign off on it. It's like, anyways, question part 2. My hubby and I are here right now together. Question: what do you say about an HOA? What is your opinion about HOAs? I have my opinions.
Oh, I would like to put a bomb under every HOA in the country. It is the greatest threat to personal freedom of anything that I've ever encountered. I wanted to put an emergency generator in my house here, and it's taken me 3 weeks now. I finally got approval. I had to fill out 7 sheets of paper. I had to get it blessed by the management of the association office, and then
did you give an offering to the gods?
I sacrificed my firstborn child.
Yeah. And this is where I agree to disagree. I get where you're saying about HOAs, and they can become a pain in the ass, pain in the butt. Excuse my French, but I lived in a neighborhood here in Louisiana that had no HOA, and it did not take long before people were parking their boats up on their lawn. They were parking their cars up on the lawn. The street was covered in cars because there was nobody to tell them no. And so then people were starting to park campers in the front of the house where they have like extension cords coming out. And I think if you are, if you have a lot of space between your neighbors, that's one thing. But when you're piled up against each other like that, you kind of have to have some rules set there where people need to follow them, because there's always a set of people that will push the boundaries and will just, I don't know. I had some the whole reason that my husband and I are in this neighborhood that we live in now, we would have stayed at that other house. There was nothing wrong with it, except for my neighbors were such jerks. They were freaking horrible. Horrible. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have to stay here. I can move somewhere else. And I did. Yeah. And I was like, I'll never live in another neighborhood without an HOA ever again. But only because it's in a neighborhood where the houses are that close. Now, if I lived out in the country where I was on 2 acres, I would no way. Oh, no way. They're not going to tell me that I can't have a pool in my backyard.
Exactly.
Exactly. Forget that.
And there's value. You can argue the benefits of an HOA. It's just that the structure itself doesn't. Like I said initially, I'm pretty much a libertarian, and that's totally contrary to anything that I support. But I live in one of those neighborhoods.
Yeah, you sure do. John Doe says this is the best episode. John Doe.
Oh, good.
And that's like horrible. I say horrible.
Horrible.
I say horrible. I've always said horrible.
You talk funny.
Everybody's made fun of me because I've always said horrible. That's so funny. I don't talk funny. I think it is horrible.
It's horrible.
Horrible. Horrible. I think whenever I was getting the approval for the HOA for this specific neighborhood, what's that? What you looking at?
Somebody loves their HOA.
Yeah. An HOA can be a nightmare. Yeah.
Hey, look, there are some HOAs where the people, I'll give you a good example of the contrast here. I was on the board of directors of the first HOA in the development that we're in. And we didn't have a clue what we were doing. Not a clue. And we did what we thought we should do. And that year passed, and I thankfully hung up my cleats and no more HOA participation. But then we had the people who are going to enforce every rule that was ever written, and they are the Gestapo type, and they are going
We call
to,
them Karens now.
we're going to put them, they're Captain Clinks, they're going to put you in the Stalag.
Yeah, they call them the Karens. A group of people that run an association are called Karens.
A young man made application for his pool, and it was approved. All right, they came and they dug the pool, and everything was going along fairly well. And then was it Karen?
A Karen.
Karen came along and took a measuring device and determined that the pool extended 6 inches into the what do you call that?
Servitude?
Servitude, that's it. Okay. They told the guy that he has to discontinue construction on the pool. And he said, no, I've received approval, sue me.
Right.
They did.
Did they win?
And it was going to go to court. And fortunately, it happened at a time when the HOA officers were up for election.
Oh.
And it took one day after the election, everybody was removed from the board. And people with reasonable sense of fairness and understanding took over, and the HOA has been a pleasure to work with since then. But there are those people who feel that they must be Hitler and to enforce, because
the ultimate Karen.
Well,
they want to be the ultimate Karen.
That pool was 6 inches over, and if we let him do it, the other person's going to build a pool and they're going to put it a foot over the servitude. The logic and the common sense went out the window, and so enough of my rant.
Okay. Well, Peter says, if mortgage rates dropped dramatically, wouldn't the cost of buying a home still be the same, since there would be a more demand for housing? Actually, the problem right now is that because there isn't enough housing available, if mortgage rates were to go down, and this has been proven because whenever they've gone down like half a point, sure enough, the prices go up, and people are in more of a frenzy to buy.
Yeah.
So anybody that's in that first-time home buyer range, pretty much in any market, even the ones that have been coming down, it's still very difficult for them to find that first home. So the prices not only they'll go up. And in my last video, I even said it. At some point, it's gotten to the point that the person that's working, the median priced, gets a median income, can't afford the median priced home in their area. And that's very true for many areas across the United States. It's terrible. We just haven't built enough homes, especially those smaller homes, that, there's plenty of McMansions. Those houses have been taking more of a financial hit, boo-hoo, but not those little houses. They're still going up. There's still like bidding wars on them. It's ridiculous. So Michelle has a question. It says, hi, Kristina. She said she loves our channel. She loves my channel.
Oh, all right.
It's great that you're featuring your dad. It's Father's Day. You could have taken the day off if you wanted. Your dad is awesome.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
I just this is my dad. So I wanted to share my dad with you guys because I talk about him all the time. I always share your stories. I probably get them wrong, but Karen Duff said, I had to listen to dumb blonde jokes for 30 years, and now I have to listen to derogatory Karen complaints for 10 years now. Please move on, please. Oh, you know what? Do you know what is so amazing about YouTube? Karen, let me just tell you what is so amazing about YouTube. There are tens of thousands of different YouTube channels all over. And if you don't like the conversation that I have with my dad, which only happens once in a lifetime. This is the first time I ever had him on here. You can just scroll on. Like, you don't have, nobody's forcing you to watch. I promise you. I promise you. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're offended, but that's my dad, and I'm going to have him on here whenever I want because it's my channel. What neighborhood in Massachusetts did Dad grow up in? I'm a Southie girl. Oh, we were in, what was the name of that neighborhood?
Long Pond.
Yeah, it was Long Pond. It was near Long Pond. And
it's exit 3 on Route 3.
Yeah. And it was like between Long Pond and Little Long Pond.
Mm-hmm.
And Little Long Pond was actually bigger than Long Pond.
No.
No? They told me it was bigger.
No.
Those kids they make up stories.
They lie.
Yeah, they also told me there was Bigfoot in the forest. I believe that too. So, oh, and that Jason from the Friday the 13th movies, that he was up at the camps. HOAs are shadow governments that compromise of so-called elected people. What are your thoughts on this? I'm not really sure. I don't have any thoughts on that. I'm not particularly. But our HOA here, when we first moved in, we had it monitored by another company. Yeah. So we gave the HOA to this company to monitor it.
That's what we have now.
It became such a joke, like some of the stuff that they were like fining us for. Mm-hmm. We now run it. The mm-hmm. neighborhood runs it. Mm-hmm. We don't have a separate company because they were like purposely fining just to collect money. Mm-hmm. You know, like just they're being dingleberries. Yeah. Anyway, question. Living in Gilbert, Arizona says, does your dad know anyone who lost investing too much in real estate during the past recessions? Do you know anybody that's lost some money in
real estate? Well, I know a lot of people who lost money investing.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But in real estate, I'll be honest, I don't have the background to answer that question.
You don't have any friends that had some rental properties that folded or anything like that?
I am not aware of anyone who has lost money. My grandmother owned rental properties.
Yes.
We had neighbors who owned rental properties. I don't recall anyone losing money.
Mm-hmm.
They bought the rental property for a lower amount that when they sold it, they made money. If they didn't sell it, they had the rental income. Mm-hmm. Generally, the real estate investment has been good over the years. With the limited exposure I have to people, that's all I can tell you.
Liberty Lover says, I love this chat. My dad was also in Korean War, and our first house is in
Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dad lived in Pittsburgh forever. My father could do just about anything and turn a fixer-upper into a beautiful home. Happy Father's Day. Well, my dad helped us. My dad and my mom came over and helped Eddie and I with our very first home. I would say we flipped that house because it was a piece of.
It was interesting.
It smelled. It was like this salmony, pinky with teal accents. It literally looked like, you remember the show Maude? Remember? And then there's Maude. You remember that?
B. Arthur,
mm-hmm. Right? It looked like those colors like you would see in that show Maude, like that.
Lord.
That pink and teal. It was everywhere. And then like the color that was supposedly beige, it was really like a soft pink. And it hadn't been painted since the early 80s.
Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day. You have a special glow.
Oh, I do have a special glow today, don't I? It's because my dad's here. Yeah. Oh, God, it stunk. We had to get a new roof. We painted the outside, painted the inside. Yep. I follow the show. Don't pay attention to the negative Nancy's.
Thank you, Marva.
And yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Question for Dad. Why do realtors avoid mentioning politics and crime when discussing people moving from blue states to red states?
If they do, they're being rotten realtors. Mm-hmm. They need to be upfront and honest with people as to the state of where they're considering looking. I know there are laws that govern what you can and cannot say, but you can always point out on a map that this map is produced by the sheriff of wherever, and you can make your own judgments as to.
Well, I always tell people, if you're ever concerned about an area, no matter where it is, there's tons of websites that you can go to that show the statistics of crime, of arrests, well, you know, like everything you possibly think of. There, it's always on the website. If you really like a neighborhood, I always tell people, go all different times of day. Look at it in the morning, look at it at night, look at it at very late night. Because, you know, if there's a bunch of people like sprawling around the area at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's not good. That's not good. But as far as like, why do real estate agents, and I'll tell you this will tell you not to, you can't do that. As a licensed real estate agent, I can't say this neighborhood is bad because XYZ. It's considered steering. I'll lose my license. And that's why we can't say that. But we can always direct you to the information where it would have there. We could always say, go look on this website and look to see how many like sex offenders are in that area and see if you really want to raise your kids there. Go check it out. You know, all the public records we direct you to, so that way you can make an informed decision, but it will never come out of our mouth because we don't want to lose our license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Living Gilbert says, question, does your dad remember a time when there was a lack of housing inventory? Do you ever remember a time that there wasn't enough houses being built?
Yeah. Back when the saber-toothed tiger roamed the earth, we had trouble finding caves to live in. And, but that goes back a little farther than, no, I do not. I know that I hear, because I know this lady sitting next to me. She
talk a lot.
She talks about the inventory's up, the inventory's down, and I know she knows what she's talking about. But from my personal view, I never experienced it. When I was looking for a house, I went out and I found a house. I've moved, you know, I'm a nomad. From the time I've been married to now, we have moved 17 times.
Yes.
Okay. And I've bought a few houses. But, you know, at the time when we purchased the house in Plymouth, Massachusetts, you could say, yes, there was a
tightening.
There weren't a lot of houses available. People had trouble being able to afford a high interest mortgage. And
it was like over 12%.
Whatever it was, it was high. And that would keep people from selling because nobody's going to buy. And but no, I personally have never experienced not being able to find a house.
This kid said, "Woo, Dad, that's a lot of moves." This kid, you know, this kid right here.
It's kind of stupid.
It's all about making money. Well, Well, every time Dad moved, it was because of money.
It was.
Yeah, every time. Like, and you know what really stinks is like sometimes he had to move like. Well, my sister was a senior in high school, you know, so they had to make those kinds of decisions, you know, like, do you upper your kids again, you know, and you follow the money.
That was the hardest one, because I wanted to let her stay there to finish, and I couldn't make any arrangements to do that. But it was the biggest move of my career, and I felt I had to do it.
Yep. Look, Red Like Wine again said, your dad is so cute. I love him. You know what? Guess what? I love him too. He's so wonderful.
What would happen if there were a boycott? If people all over just stopped buying houses?
All together.
Good luck.
Well, I mean, like that, and you know, like if there was you would have to get a lot of people on board not to buy a house. And here's what I think would happen. This is where the danger in that is. If the public said, I'm not going to buy houses, that leaves them up to renting houses. And who are they going to rent houses from? The people that bought them. And most likely, if anybody's buying houses when there's a boycott, it's going to be the people with the deepest pockets, which are corporate investors. So all you're doing is helping the corporate investors by boycotting buying houses. So, yeah. How old is your dad? He looks in great health. The health is questionable. He looks good.
How old? I'll be 85 in November.
Yeah, he'll be 85. Yeah. How many times have you had cancer?
Well,
4?
Counting the one I got, 4.
Yeah, 4 times. 4 times. He takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Love it.
Is there any way to speed up the process since paying all cash?
Like a bonus for doing it 6 months instead of 18 to 24 months. Is there any way to speed up the process since paying all cash, like a bonus for doing it? Are you talking about like building? If you're building, there is no way to speed it up. I mean, that's entirely up to the builder, and that might depend on when he's able to get crews out to that house. Now, if you're purchasing a house, you can have it close just like that. I mean, here, I think that the shortest time I've ever seen it done with paying cash is 10 days, because you still have to do all the title work. They have to do all the title work, research, make sure that they're able to have a free and clear title to be able to purchase the house. When in that case, do not forego title insurance, especially if you're buying cash. And that's as quick as you could purchase a house from the time. You can't walk in with a suitcase either. Like, you can't walk in buying a house with a suitcase of cash. It has to be marinated funds. You can't. So, and it happens. Every title attorney I've ever met in my whole entire life always has that one guy who comes in with a suitcase of cash thinking they can buy a house. Yep. So I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the prices have gotten quite high. Oh yeah, Massachusetts is always been high.
Boston has been horrendous,
but it's beautiful.
Oh, I
like the Berkshire Mountains. Like, I just saw a video recently of the Berkshires, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to go back. Yeah, you're looking at this. Yeah. Question: is your dad's favorite TV show MASH? I'm reading the book. Did you? We loved that show as kids.
I've watched every episode of MASH. That was a good show. Yeah. And I think the person who played Houlihan, Hot Lips.
Yeah.
I think she just died.
Oh, really?
And,
oh, that's a bummer.
That's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Question. Red Light Wine again says, Kristina, what are your thoughts on the rumors of drug use going on in certain housing neighborhoods? I was told that you can't control what people do in their houses, so don't worry about it. Well, you can't control what people do in their houses. If they want to inject themselves or have booger sugar or whatever it is they want to do in their own home, that's none of your business. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to be rude, but it really doesn't matter. We had a neighborhood. Well, hold on. We had a neighborhood right up the road. These people were cooking the quartz-like substance in their house that crystallizes, and they blew. I mean, this in a nice neighborhood. These houses were like close to $350,000. Blew the whole top of it off. Blew the whole thing off. Oops. Luckily, there were kids living in the house. They were all off at school at that time. Thank God. But yeah, you can't control it. You can't control it. But you got to remember too, if you really think about it, I mean, pretty much everybody on the planet at this point is on something, whether it's aspirin, Afrin, vitamins, somebody's on something, pretty much everybody you run into, Yep. Dad, you look marvelous. He does, doesn't
days.
he? Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
He does look marvelous.
Oh, yeah.
I get all my good looks from him.
Well, the other part of that, I think, would be that if you become aware that there's an illegal activity occurring in a given house, there's nothing to prevent you from reporting that to the police.
Absolutely.
And if they don't do anything, unless you're willing to arm yourself and go over there and throw them out, I certainly wouldn't.
No, I'm kind of like, whatever. I got blinders on. CC Moon with a $5 super chat says, my father just got rid of prostate cancer. Congratulations. Yeah, she did a little clappy hands. Yeah. He had prostate surgery removed recently. He's in his mid-70s. Healing vibes. She's sending you some healing vibes.
Well, I'll go along with that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate right before the pandemic, my dad totally got boned right when the pandemic was about to start. My dad finally gets you're finally cancer free. He went through the ringer. And just when he was like about to like go out into the world, the whole world shuts down. And now he's stuck in the house for another year. That was the pits. He was like, I haven't left the house in 3 years. This was not what I needed to happen. I'm like, nobody really wanted it to happen, Dad. He's like, I know, but I can't even go grocery shopping. I have to go at different times. It was crazy.
I love grocery shopping.
Oh, I know.
That's my life.
My dad goes grocery shopping 3 times a week. 3 times a week.
At least.
They know him by name. Like when he walks into the store, they're like, oh, hey, Mr. Vince. Like he's made friends with all of them. They love him. Yep. So we're rounding it out in an hour. We got another question. Noreen says, what does your dad think of the new communities of rental only homes? Have you seen the communities that are they're basically building first time home buyer type homes, and instead of selling them, they're renting them out. What do you think about that?
Well, I have two feelings about it. Number one, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's something that somebody's doing. They're providing a place for people to live. The bad part of it is that an individual doesn't have the opportunity to buy a house and to be able to generate the income that's to be achieved when you sell it as a result of the inflation and what have you. So on a long-term basis, it's probably not a good thing, but by the same token, I've moved enough times where I really had to rent, and I would probably have liked to have found a community of rental-only homes. That's not what realtors, am I saying that right?
I don't know. I always say it wrong. Realtors
would want to hear, but that would be my opinion.
The thing is that if there is an area that has enough homes for people to live in that can purchase them, I don't think there's a problem with build to rent. The problem that I see right now is that they're putting them in areas that have a lack of homes for people to purchase. So they're filling that gap with homes that they can rent. Yeah, we can talk for as long as we want. There's no rule. No one's gonna cut the plug.
I am.
Yeah, Dad's gonna. Yeah, well, totally agree with you. Everybody's on something. Yeah, everybody is on something. That is true.
Falsificationism?
Yeah, falsificationism.
Wow.
I know, that's a great name, isn't it?
Yes,
It took me about 5 shows to be able to say that name. I still have trouble with it.
MHO8, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yep. So, well, I'm going to go eat some crab cakes with my dad. If you're catching this on the live stream on the end, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way you can come on next week. We will not have my dad here, unfortunately, but I
promise I won't be here.
But I will be back to the regular content, talking over what's going on in the real estate market with the top headlines that are on Google this week. So, but I will say this. I want to thank my dad.
Thank you
for having me.
Thank you very much.
Deciding to have another kid. I mean, he ended with the best, of course. I want to say thank you to our moderators. I want to say thank you to our super chatters that helped support the channel today. I really appreciate every single one of you. If you want to listen to this afterwards and you don't want to see my face, I can understand why. But you can listen on anywhere you get your podcasts. Just go to, anywhere. It's Real Estate for Everyone with Kristina Smallhorn. And if you happen to be on Apple Podcasts, make sure you give me a little 5-star review. That would be really exciting. If you look, they'll have right at the bottom as you scroll down the episodes, it says, would you like to rate this podcast? Go ahead and give me a little 5-star review. I'd really be thankful for that, because we want to get that podcast out to as many people as possible.
Thanks for tolerating me.
Yeah, of course. You're my favorite person, Dad. I love you. Oh. And I also want to say, if you need to get a hold of me this week and you want to find a real estate agent in your area, you can always visit my website at KristinaSmallhorn.com. Make sure you hit one of the pink buttons, fill out the form, and please leave your phone number, because I can't get a hold of you if you don't. So just go ahead, fill out the form, and I will contact you this week, and we can help you with your real estate needs. And with that, my friends, I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope we do not have another week of living in unprecedented times, because I always say I'm kind of done with it. How about you, Dad?
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that. All right, everybody. Love you.
Cheers.
See ya. Be good. Stay out of trouble. Don't touch strangers.
Look both ways before crossing.
Well, yeah, don't look up when it's raining. Do you have any other wise advice, Dad, to leave them with?
I've got a lot to know.
Yeah, no. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Who's that redheaded daddy?
Oh, no. Which part of his hair does he have?